Today, our guest is a journalist who reports on Pakistan's diplomacy, who reports on militancy and conflicts all around the world. He is currently the bureau chief of Asia One News. We over here have Anas Malik. Hi, Anas.
Thank you so much, Rana, for having me, and best of luck for Pakistan Connect as well. I mean, it's exciting to be here. We need more platforms which can communicate to the outer world in the language that the world understands as well. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Perfect. Recently, you were in Wana, where the Pakistan's military initiated an operation and made sure that all the terrorists are eliminated. How was the experience and what were your takeouts?
Yes, I was very recently in Wana, and I think it was a privilege to be there, to be able to see up close with regards to the operational precision that the Pakistani Armed Forces carried out. The meticulous operation that was executed, with utmost precision, where there was zero amount or zero space for any mistakes to be done. Primarily because the lives of over 650 individuals, which had over 500 individuals as students, were at stake. Terrorists, 5 of them, all belonging to Afghanistan. Now that it has been established, and I'm not accusing anyone. There
have been official statements.
There have been official statements. We've seen their communication. We've seen now there are ample amount of audio evidences and video evidences that have surfaced. So it's not an allegation, or I'm not parroting anyone's lines.
Yeah.
I'm saying what I believe in, basically, that ways. The terrorists, they tried to take hostage of school-going children, cadets. They wanted to repeat the massacre of 2014, the Army Public School massacre.
Yeah.
But as the direction from the military leadership was very clear, that they could take howsoever long it would take to eliminate them, but to ensure that there is zero harm, not minimal, zero harm to any students that were present. And the instructions from the Pakistani military chief, Field Marshal Asim Munir, they were conveyed down to the level of the soldier who were carrying out the operation, and it was very well abided to, not paid a heed to, but abided to in letter and spirit. And we saw that after the conclusion of the evacuation operation, which in the back frame of the evacuation lead, Colonel Shahid Masood of the FC, he was the evacuation lead, and he, along with Colonel Muhammad Usman, these two individuals, they had one thing in mind. We've had an APS 2014, December, an absolute carnage, absolute catastrophe.
Yeah.
So they will not allow a repeat of the APS tragedy. Never forget, never forgive, never again. I think they did a meticulous job. And of course, once the rescue was done, it was only a matter of some time until those who were involved would be taken out, and that is exactly how it happened. The terrorists had failed to execute their nefarious designs.
What would, I'm sorry to cut you over here, what would your analysis be that right when the Wana attack started by the terrorists, in less than, I would say, 24 hours or less than 36 hours, we saw an attack on the capital that was also tracked back to the Afghan side. And the military and the Pakistan Army was very quick to assess, analyze the situation over there and then tracking it back to the Afghan side. What's your take on this, the current rise of terrorist activities that are happening?
Well, we've seen a surge in terrorism in Pakistan, particularly since the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan across the border in 2021. We've seen an 800% increase in terrorist incidents. We've seen a 500% increase in suicide bombings, let alone, since August 2021 to date. And these are not Anas Malik stats. These are publicly available stats, which you can cross-check that ways. Most of them, they would be linked back and tracked back to Afghanistan. Or even in cases where they would not be tracked back to Afghanistan, the terror-linked elements, they would be radicalized in Afghanistan. They would be controlled from elements present inside Afghanistan. I think with the breakdown of the recent talks, or inconclusiveness of the recent talks, as they say, This is posturing on the part of the Afghan Taliban, where they would allow such terrorist groups to operate. But again, while to what it seems posturing to the Afghan Taliban is essentially a damning indictment as well on the part of the international community. I mean, it depends on how you see the glass. You see the glass half full or half empty, right?
Yeah.
I would say it's a damning indictment on the part of the Afghan Taliban for the international community, for they allow such elements to be aided, abetted, enjoy safe havens, and they allow them to continue. And this, I think, God forbid, the Pakistani intelligence agencies and security forces, they continue with their operations almost on daily basis. Over 100 of them are carried out each 24 hours. But the Taliban are trying to, both the Afghan Taliban and the Tehrik-e-Taliban, the terrorist group, they're trying to flex their muscles in a bid to show their resolve, but they don't understand that they're trying to get a hold, they're trying to show their muscle to a nation which has lost 80,000 of its brave men, soldiers, and a nation that is resilient, that refuses to give up, and that only has one point agenda, to root out terrorism from its soil.
You talked about you talked about the Afghan and Pakistan talks that were held earlier in the month and in the previous month too. You were there to cover those talks too. And we heard about different reports emerging regarding the delaying tactics being used by the Afghan side. What were those delaying tactics, and what do you think initiated or motivated them to use those delaying tactics? And we also saw that Khwaja Asif's statements during the talks came, and that was a very strong statement.
So I think, to add a bit of context, these talks were not happening in isolation. These talks were happening only when Pakistan showed its intent,
which was very clear.
Capacity, capability, and its intelligence precision, when Pakistan carried out those precision strikes in Kandahar and in Kabul, which have been largely talked about. I don't want to sound very rhetorical, but it was the Taliban who reached out to Saudi, who reached out to Qatar, who reached out to Turkey, who reached out to another country in the region, and they did not receive quite favorable responses, except from those from Turkey and from Qatar.
But then, sorry to cut you over here, but then that also makes me question that if Taliban wanted to initiate the talks, then why were they using those delaying tactics?
Again, I'll just answer that question very shortly. I think when they initiated the talks, they had something in the back frame of their mind, and a bit of context. When Pakistan carried out those precision strikes, particularly in Kabul, that while it was intelligence based, but it made an inherent fear in the Taliban heads, and that was that no place is safe for them. No place is far away for Pakistan to carry out its activities based on intelligence, based on precision. The Taliban of 2025 are much more changed, reformed from the Taliban of 2005.
Okay.
The 2005 Talib was a caveman. The 2025 Taliban don't want to live in caves.
Yeah.
So essentially, when you're targeting, when Kabul's been hit, that means no place is safe.
Yeah.
That's why they pleaded out and sought talks. But for the Taliban to go on for talks and to go sincerely for talks, that's just not possible, because any action against the TTP would essentially mean that the Taliban are acting against themselves, not against one of their own, but against themselves. So largely, I think that is one of the bigger reasons why they kept on using the delay tactics, and they will continue to exercise these delay tactics going forward, because they do not have a definite solution.
Okay.
During Istanbul Round 1, that began on the 25th of October, and then ended on the 30th of October. 6 days of talks, 60 hours of negotiations. Pakistan side was far well prepared. They had a comprehensive proposal. When the Pakistani, and this was technical level or working level talks. So when the Pakistani side presented their proposal, the Taliban were caught unaware. They had a lackluster approach. They did not understand what was going on. So they sought time. And the first thing that they sought, even before they sought time, was, we want a secure line. We need to speak to people. We need to speak to decision makers. On the other part, the Pakistani delegation was far more empowered, despite the fact that it was a working level delegation. So it gives you a sense. It gives you a sense that when you're asking for clarity, when you're asking for decisions, or the ability to take decisions, it shows your helplessness, and it won't work. It won't work anyway. It's not worked now. It's not worked previously. And a bit of context again. I've covered the Taliban-US talks that began in 2018 in September, 7th or 8th of September 2018, in Doha. And they were about close to, 43 rounds of negotiations, both formal and informal. And up until the agreement that was signed on the 29th of February 2020, again in Doha. The amount of leverage, the amount of concessions, that's the right word. The amount of concessions that the Pakistani side was willing to give to the Afghan Taliban was far more than the US would have even offered them in those 43 rounds of negotiations. Why? Because Islamabad does not want violence or conflict. They believe in dialogue and diplomacy. They believe in good neighborliness, and that's why they were there in sincerity. But the Taliban refusing to not listen to Pakistan, not listening to Islamabad, refusing to acknowledge some basic demand of Islamabad, which is to root out terrorism from their soil. I think until that is not addressed, things will not continue and cannot move forward.
Perfectly. I would say perfectly explained. My last one to you would be that currently Pakistan has announced the Chief of Defence Forces. What's your take on that? Do you think it was the need of the hour, with currently Pakistan facing threats from both sides of the border, with Pakistan also giving a promising response back in May to the Indian side and currently to the Afghan side? Do you think it was really the need of the hour?
I think a consolidation of power, I mean, as someone who's been a Democrat, I've more so believed in a devolution of power. But given that Pakistan recently had a conflict with India, where, it's very well spoken, 7-0 and whatnot, it's become more of a meme now than a joke. And where India was the one bleeding, quite literally. So a consolidation of power in that context, where there would be one unified command, was definitely a need of the hour. But going forward, I think, once these threats, they disseminate, then, because at the end of the day, as a democracy, more devolution of power is always appreciated. But that, as I said, right now, given the circumstances, this was an ideal move. But again, an ideal move made for something which is right on the horizon, because there's already been talks of another conflict brewing with India. There have been talks of a two-front, and now the defense minister has already spoken about it as well, that Pakistan is well prepared. So to have a unified command structure is absolutely essential. It is imperative, and that's why it is necessary to move forward and have a chief of defense staff, so that there is more in a better aligned, coordinated structure for the armed forces.
Perfectly explained. Islamabad wants peace. Islamabad wants dialogue. But if there is no dialogue, if there is no peace, then Islamabad knows how to strike. Thank you so much, Anas, for your time.
Thank you so much, Abdullah, for having me.